the biggest risks must be a hitch in the vaccine rollouts in the Western world. Is that right, Andrew?
It's the most identifiable risk. It's the obvious risk, and it would certainly have a big impact. There are other risks around there, and if I think about the one which probably isn't being discussed enough, a new U.S. administration does create the very hard to forecast but very real risk of geopolitical uncertainty. So there are other risks, but yes, the vaccine's a big one.
Yeah, that's the risk. But in terms of the opportunity, though, Andrew, you acknowledge the geopolitical uncertainty, of course, but you still think this is a time where we'll see dollar declines, and you like emerging market assets at this point.
Yeah, I think anything that's leveraged to that weaker US dollar is probably going to be a good place to be. And I think a very simple way about thinking about 2021 is that given we've been through such a big economic shift, is that I think you wouldn't normally say this, but I think the losers of 2020 are likely to be the winners of 2021. I think that's probably the simplest way to put the outlook.
Indeed, we see China after an early exit from the lockdown and stimulus really, well, today we see a new record high, or at least the highest level in 13 years on Chinese stocks. I want to talk about Europe, though, Andrew. Your team sees a continued rotation, or a rotation, I guess, from U.S. assets into European assets, from the big momentum tech stocks into value stocks. Is that correct?
I think that's a reasonable contour for 2021. Those cheap, unloved value stocks are starting to replace those pandemic-supported, over-expensive, technology-focused growth stocks, yes.
And what about real estate? I noticed, Andrew, that your team likes REITs, and I wonder which part of the real estate world you want to get exposure to. Is that because you think we're going to return to offices, and therefore those beaten-up office space providers will do well, or is it more about residential property? And I mean, retail's obviously under stress at this point as well. Where in the REIT space do you focus?
Yeah, so REITs look good overall because they had such a bad 2020. But obviously REITs are a complicated asset class right now, and I think everyone's quite familiar with how poor the story looks for retail. But things like leisure and office in particular look like they have the potential to rebound. So again, as we move from the things that did well during the pandemic and the lockdowns are likely to be replaced by things that are going to benefit from the reopening, and REITs look to be one of those asset classes that will be very much a reopening play.